developers, we spend a lot of our time writing code, but in the end, the only thing that really counts is us getting that code out to customers. For me, that usually means setting up some sort of build system inside GitHub or GitLab. And over the last year or so, I've been getting more familiar with GitHub Actions and GitLab CI/CD, and they've really been a lifesaver to me. Because now we don't have to actually go and use a third-party tool. You can integrate the build system that you have directly inside your repository. And based off that experience I've had, I've written a new article in the DZone CI/CD Trend Report that covers all the basics on how to get a build system set up in GitLab and GitHub. So I appreciate if you guys give it a read. I hope it helps you guys, and I appreciate your feedback. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thanks, guys.
All right, this is Blake, the community manager over at DZone. Thanks for joining us for DZone Live, episode number 5. We've got a jam-packed agenda for today. So that was Justin Albano talking about our latest DZone Trend Report on CI/CD. I'll put a link here into the chat. So stick around for us today. We've got a great agenda. We'll do a Q&A at the very end. Up first, our featured guest. Let me bring him onto the stage. We've got Vishnu from Opsera. Vishnu, how's it going?
Doing great, Blake. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, doing great out here in North Carolina. For those not familiar with you and Opsera, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Sure. I'm Vishnu Vasudevan. I'm based out of Phoenix, and I've been with the DevOps industry for quite some time now. Like, God knows, like maybe 2010, I started my cloud journey, and from then on, 2012, 2013, I got into the DevOps. And it was all new, and like we were trying to automate the build, deploy, and piece of it. Now here we are, like everything has become now just like continuous integration, continuous deployment. It is continuous testing, continuous security. So it's a quite exciting journey for me. And prior to Opsera, I've been working with the financial industries, just managing and building the private cloud and DevOps practices. And today I'm here with Opsera. I head the product. Building the no-code orchestration platform, not just for the SDLC, but we are also building across SaaS, COTS-based application infrastructure as a code, and even the machine learning piece of it.
Exciting. And so we just recently worked with Opsera on the DZone Trend Report for CI/CD. We also just did a crowd chat this week. So we had Daniel Stori who worked on that stuff. And then you also have a webinar coming up on July 27th. So if you want to talk a little bit about our trend report and the crowd chat and your event going on the 27th, I think our audience would love to hear about those.
Absolutely. So like looking at the report was exhaustive, and it had like so much of data, like proving like where the market is trending towards the CI/CD with the growing cloud approach, and also the lot of tools coming into the market. It is becoming a crowded market right now, and also like getting complex for the engineers and for the executives to choose the right tools for their application platform and needs. So we did a crowd chat this week, and we had like very good reception on that. Like we had around like 89K like viewing came in like 30 minutes, and that shows like where people are looking into it with respect to the code delivery. And in the webinar, we're going to talk detail about like the CI/CD trends and how important the orchestration platform needs to be and how robust it's going to be. And it's going to be an exciting webinar. Like people across the globe, I would request them to join the webinar and get some insights, and like we would like to learn from people as well as part of the webinar as well.
Excellent. And also, just for everyone that's here today over in chat, actually put into chat links to Opsera where you can find them on their website, they're on Twitter, and also for Vishnu, I put a link to his Twitter handles where you can go and follow them. So some very exciting stuff. One of the things we're talking about with CI/CD, we've got so many teams remote these days, and we were just talking before we went live just about execution and just kind of how important that is for CI/CD. So I was just going to quickly get your thoughts on that.
Right. So even before pandemic, there was problem, but like when the pandemic hit, like nobody was expecting that. Like, so the team was not prepared for it. And what happened was like teams started working on silos. And that has created a lot of confusion with respect to the application deliverables, because like you have a lot of upstream application, downstream application, and each and every one follow a different process. Some application still follows the waterfall model, some follow agile. And I have seen, or like I have heard like from a lot of people, there's a lot of finger pointing started happening, right? Like when the delivery is not happening, and with the pandemic stress and everything going around. So there needs to be one orchestration platform, and also like you need to make sure the engineers needs to be empowered, and they need to have the flexibility to choose the right tools, just to make sure they are having a shift left approach towards the CI/CD, like where they need to make sure the security and quality is taken care even before the code is sent to production. And there's also a lot of bottlenecks that got into it, right? In terms of the code review, how many people are like really doing the code review? And you basically like covered that particular topic in the CI/CD trend really well, because like a lot of people, they do it for the namesake, but how many people doing it 100% just to make sure that code does not have any vulnerabilities, right? And now security has become a priority for everybody because of the cloud approach. And where DevOps is now is basically like that's where the cloud was like 5 years before. Yeah, there's a huge adoption going around, and in order to make that happen, we need to make sure the engineers gets the flexibility to choose the right choice based on their application stacks, or not because of someone is choosing the tools and they are enforced to use the tool. So that's something like they need to focus on it. That will help them basically reduce the finger pointing, and also like using a no-code orchestration platform which can orchestrate not just the tool chain but also your pipelines across different segments like the SDLC, the SaaS-based application cards, the infrastructure as a code, and then like you have the data pipelines. So if everything can be under one orchestration platform, and also you get observability where you can correlate and contextualize, so like the finger pointing gets reduced, you save a lot of time in terms of the identifying the issues and then reducing the MTTR. That's going to be huge, and that's a trend I think I'm going to see in next 2-3 years.
Excellent. That's very good. That's very good. And we were going to have Daniel Stori come up and join us. So Daniel also, just off those comic on there, so Daniel is also part of the Trend Report. Did a really great comic on there. So definitely, if you go to the link where we shared this and check it out, he's got a really great comic. So check that out. Don't see Daniel on here. Let me throw it over to Alireza. Alireza, I will throw you up on the stage with Vishnu, since Daniel is not here. So Alireza is also like really big with our CI/CD. So any questions you have for Vishnu? Putting you live on the spot.
Hi. No, I don't have any question, but I think that was a great opportunity because the people involved on this trend report, one of the interesting thing about them is the fact that they are not only writing about this, they are the people are heavily involved in different projects. So they have a hands-on experience. So what they actually wrote, it's exactly about what they have done. So it's coming from the real experience. And I think definitely that was one of the interesting trend report I think we have had on DZone, except the fact that I also wrote in that part. I'm just talking about others, but I think that's quite interesting because we covered a lot of different areas from the CI/CD pipeline for the projects, different technologies, even one research-based article. And also from my part, I actually did something regarding the infrastructure as a code, because that's a kind of new member of the CI/CD pipeline in the last couple of years. In the past, we had the physical hardware for the infrastructure, and nowadays it became virtual, and we can write a code and turn it to the infrastructure. So I think in general, that was a nice collaboration and experience. And thanks to Opsera to provide this opportunity for all of us to bring this for people.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Alireza. And we were going to have Daniel. Daniel's on a beach in Brazil right now with his Wi-Fi is not working as good. But luckily, we've got Alireza out of the Netherlands, who also worked on that trend report. And then just to close out on this today, and thanks so much, Vishnu, for joining us. If you want to, I believe, Alireza, you're going to be on their webinar on the 27th. If you want to tell people a little bit about that coming up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think in the webinar, I still don't know the plan for the webinar, but definitely I think it's going to be interesting event in which we can share our experience with people and also maybe get some feedback. I'm really interested to get feedback. I think that's definitely would be useful for us to see if we really help some people and if there is something we still can do for the next trend report or next articles we are writing.
Awesome. And Vishnu, on your side, anything to add to that for the webinar on the 27th?
Yeah, as Alireza mentioned, like we are looking forward to the webinar because we're going to share the experience being in the market and also like understanding the pain points. It's going to be very, very critical for us to make sure that like we are getting the continuous feedback while we're creating these trends and see like how we can continuously improve the CI/CD process and also the DevOps ecosystem across the industry.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. We'll be sure on the DZone Live F5 article and on the content on YouTube and other places to put a link for the webinar once that goes live, where you'll be able to register for that. So just book your calendars now for July 27th of this month. So Vishnu, any parting thoughts that you want to give? And thanks so much for joining and being our featured guest.
Thank you so much, Blake, for the opportunity, and like thanks again for your CI/CD trend report. And I think like now it has become an eye opener for a lot of people. Like they were thinking like they have a very good CI/CD ecosystem, but after the report, they're gonna like go revisit their entire ecosystem, and I hope like it's going to help them mature over the process over the time. And thanks, Alireza, for like contributing on that. Like it's an exhaustive. I love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Vishnu over at Opsera. We've got a link into the chat. So part of our new DZone CI/CD trend report that's out. Link is in the chat. They also have that webinar coming up on the 27th. We'll be sure to get the links out. Up next, we're going to switch to a team over at IBM who had a trending article in our cloud zone called Hybrid Multi-Cloud Adoption. So let me get up to the stage. 3 authors from this DZone article, Ram, Ryan, and Debasis. So let me get them up.
Hi there.
And Ryan, hey, wow, this is amazing. 3 authors on an article. This has been like hugely popular on DZone, so it's a huge honor to have you all here. So if you could say a little bit about yourself and the work that you do at IBM.
Let me start from myself. I'm Ravishankar. I'm a distribution engineer with IBM. I lead the transformation engagement and transformation part for our customers in the hybrid cloud, multi-cloud adoption. And 3 of us, we've been working for more than 5 years these days in the context of helping our customers transforming, particularly large banks and large enterprises where there is a need for a very methodical programmatic approach in cloud adoption. So that is what I lead, and I work with these gentlemen here. The 3 of us work together in the context of helping our customers. Okay.
Awesome. And then Ryan, on your side?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is Ryan Smith. I'm a distinguished engineer, and my focus over the last half a decade has been on helping clients understand the value of cloud and understanding how to create a strategy. How do you get started? How do you build that program? How do you tie it to business objectives and build your business case? And then a specific dive down into the tooling, the method, the approach for large-scale transformations, and including the people aspect of change, not just the technology, which is extremely important. Deb?
Excellent. And then for Dubai, tell people a little bit about yourself. You may not be able to hear us, but we know he's there, so we definitely also have Dubai on from here. So just really interesting article that's on DZone that, like I mentioned, was trending. We put a link to it into the chat. Where really you're focusing on the sort of the concept of the multi-cloud and sort of the complexity that that brings to us versus just looking at it from a single cloud provider. So for those that haven't read this article, if y'all want to talk a little bit about it and kind of the work that you go into explaining the multi-cloud and the differences.
Yeah, so essentially the idea is enterprises are going to multi-cloud. So not a single provider is sufficient enough anymore because of the technological complexity, the possibilities of vendor lock-in and the amount of services being available on the different cloud products will suffice, right? Essentially, the enterprises are now setting up multi-cloud environment, whether it is on-premise.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having us on the
services, and they're all deciding basically on a different set of products and product capability that eventually will be rolled out to the field. Our goal is to help our customer reduce the complexity in the context of technology, in the context of people, in the context of workload that can go on to cloud, and the context of integration and the holistic aspect of it. Programmatic approach, transforming the technology, transforming the people, at the same time, make sure that there is a business value in everything they are able to do in the context of the full journey of cloud. That's all we are about, and helping the customer in a programmatic way and methodical way to really get where they want to go with multi-cloud. Does that help?
Yeah, it's great. And it's a really popular article on DZone. So what do you think, like, a lot of companies are like working with multi-cloud? So it seems like, I mean, obviously people are turning into this. What do you sort of attribute to the success and so many people checking out this article?
I'm sorry, not able to hear you very well. Repeat that last part again.
Sure. Thanks for that, Ram. So for this article being so popular, so it's almost sort of just very timely that so many companies are checking it out. Right. So I was just curious, from your perspective, what do you attribute the success in getting so much attention with this article?
Well, the success is about mainly about the again, going back to the same point again, programmatic, methodical approach. There is huge complexity in helping customers moving from the current status of data center based applications and workloads to multi-cloud based workloads and applications. Creating a specific approach of product centric model and transforming people to do that workload migration and workload orchestration and putting applications on containers and the cloud stack and the likes of it. Then how do we do that in the context of programs, in the methodical approach, in the context of automation, in the context of containerization? All the things come together, and we try to take it in series of blocks, or series of block series actually over the next few months, that actually not only gives a method but also the learnings that we have had in the past 5 years of our work with several global customers. That would be my approach. Ryan, you want to add anything to that? Deb, you want to add anything?
I would add, 5 years ago, most of our clients were experimenting with a public cloud provider, understanding what it's all about. They would pick their favorite, and we're developing, cloud native apps there. And as we started to see clients grow on their maturity scale, the desire to add redundancy across different cloud providers, the common developer experience, regardless of where it's going to run, on-prem, multiple clouds, and understanding the value that it brings to be portable, to have a common experience, and increase your reuse, and then at the same time mitigate risks. So I think we're starting to see that our clients are more mature in their thinking now, and starting to really, I'll call it double down on their cloud strategy and understand, what's next after we've done, the initial kind of kicking of the tires, so to speak.
And don't forget also the business value they're expecting in every step of their program. not just that I am migrating my application. So am I getting the value that I originally was promised about? Am I seeing the improvement in operational efficiency? Am I seeing value coming back to me in terms of dollars and cents, right? So every step of the way, the expectation is value, value, value. So there has to be an ROI, there has to be a transformation, there has to be a people and skills approach, there has to be people experience, all things need to happen along the way.
Excellent. And then on the article itself, one of the comments from Nagaraj Tantri. So Nagaraj in the comment says, great article. I think the cost implications and latency are higher in a hybrid multi-cloud approach, which if you rather have a single cloud, you can think of having your app communications within a private network, thus fast and cost savings. And I know, Ryan, you followed up on that comment. It'd be good just to sort of capture the thoughts here.
Yeah, he's right. You know, you have to think about latency and network traffic, and not just the latency, but the cost, right, of the ingress egress across the clouds. And so it doesn't, you know, the article, and I think we'll get into this when we get into some of the follow-on blogs and we get into the architecture aspects of it and some of the trade-offs that we need to consider. Just because you have the ability to have multiple clouds and run your workloads doesn't necessarily mean that you want to have workloads for an app to be across multiple clouds. So some of the best practices that we've learned along the way, like this one, where yes, you want to have tightly coupled systems or tightly coupled you know, microservices that have chatty interfaces on the same network, from a cost resiliency and from a you know, a latency perspective is definitely a good point that he brought out there.
Yeah, I think back to that, clustering of workloads is going to be a very important aspect in where the workloads work together can be laddered onto a target zone aspect. Secondly, ability to decompose a monolith and then take clusters into the appropriate location in the target cloud is also an important factor to reduce the latency target zone aspect. Secondly, ability. Okay.
And then last question for everyone. So how did y'all first discover DZone, and what do you like about writing articles on DZone?
DZone, I think, is one of the very easier platforms to get our articles together. Let me give a simple example. We were writing our article on Word documents, including pictures and everything. It was simplest way is to copy paste it to DZone and start editing directly on DZone. Secondly, the way I like about it is the governance that you guys already have. It is not just the article is edited and published in a single click. There is a moderation that really takes care of looking at the article for the conciseness, for the governance aspect and the likes of it, and the moderation team takes care of the necessary bells and whistles to be published before the article gets published, right? So that part, the ease of the platform and the user experience on DZone is really a good one. I would give a thumbs up. And of course, the audience, a broad reach.
Excellent. Anything to add to that, Ryan? All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on DZone Live. And I think very excited for the work that you've done and shared. It's very popular on DZone. So I know a lot of people are getting tremendous value over the work that you're sharing on there. So a huge thanks to y'all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, this is Blake, Community Manager over at DZone. Get a link to the article on hybrid multi-cloud adoption in the chat where you can find it. Don't miss that. Be sure to check it out. Up next, we're going to talk integration. So we've got Gaurav. Gaurav, how's it going?
Hey, hi, Blake. Yeah, it's going good.
Got the Mealsoft t-shirt going on today.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. So yeah, I've been working with Mealsoft for quite a while now. So yes, promoting it.
Excellent. So tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me here. So yeah, so I've been working with IT industry for almost 10 years now, and I'm currently working as a solution architect in APSRO. And apart from my regular job activities, I'm also Mealsoft meetup leader for Goa and mentor. And I've been expertise wise, I'm not only involved with Mealsoft, but I also have background in Go, Java, Spring, and Hibernate as well. So at heart, I'm a code programmer. So like a lot of people. So yes, that's about me. A code programmer and currently into integration.
Great. And so what are some of the topics that you love to cover and write about on DZone?
Okay, so yeah, so I've been using DZone for quite a while now, like almost 5 6 years now. But I thought like I was not contributing it to into DZone. So recently I started with writing blogs. So in 2020 I started writing blogs. So the main or the topics which I write on DZone is mainly related to Mealsoft. But I try to cover other aspect as well, right? So like if I want to integrate with some other system, or maybe like how I can use that particular system with Mealsoft, right? So I try to include that as well. So I have written a couple of blogs on Azure Devops as well, fire standards as well, like which is part of healthcare system. So yeah, but mainly it has been centered around Mealsoft and related tools. Yeah.
Very cool. And then just kind of for, switching gears, or not switching gears, kind of like, you got the Mealsoft t-shirt on today. So if you could tell people a little bit about everything currently going on around Mealsoft and integration there, it seems like such a popular space these days.
Yeah, so lot of things are going into Mealsoft. So we are adding different tools, new tools like Salesforce, Composer, and Data Graph. So which is a GraphQL, right? So like we have REST and then GraphQL. So it's a way of using GraphQL APIs in Mealsoft. So you can combine multiple APIs to create your own API. So you don't have to develop it from scratch, and then probably you'll get a result maybe in a single go rather than calling multiple APIs. So that is something new in Mealsoft, and obviously there are a lot of different models we have in Mealsoft. Yes.
An interesting thing for me, there's so many solutions and options now, in general around integration. Why do you think Mealsoft is so popular?
Okay, so I have worked with TIPCO as well, TIPCO Spring integration, and now Mealsoft. So the best part that I feel is that it's literally very easy to learn, frankly speaking, and because if you want to learn other programming language or something like that, it takes time to, or maybe the learning curve is quite huge. Yeah, but Microsoft, it's easy, much easier than programming language at least. But obviously there are other integration framework like TIPCO and Delbumi and others. But yeah, the learning curve is much easier, and we have a lot of different available connectors which you can use it to integrate directly, which doesn't take a lot of time to integrate, right? So that's the reason I think Microsoft is at the top. Yeah, and yeah, definitely.
And the other interesting thing too with Mealsoft, it seems to have such a supportive and vibrant community. So everybody that's
Right.
working in it seems very supportive of each other.
Right, agree. So we have huge community actually. So like almost each and every city have their own group where we have our meetups, right? So where we discuss the technical stuff and we ask questions and like there's quiz round. So community wise, it's one of the biggest community in integration. So yes.
Yeah, great. And then do they do certifications with Mealsoft, ways to sort of learn and get certified?
Yeah, so we have a few certifications. So for developer, like you have Mealsoft certified developer level 1. So you can do that if you want to get started with Mealsoft, and then you have advanced level certifications like integrations architect and platform architect, which you can do if you want to get into architect. Role, or even as a developer you can do that if you want to learn and related to architect stuff and platform related stuff, you can go ahead and do that as well. Yes.
Okay, great. And last question. So then on DZones, we've got a link to your profile in the chat. So anybody watching us live or on demand later date, we've got a link to their profile in the chat. It'll be available on YouTube and all that great stuff. But what are some of the upcoming articles or content that the audience can expect from you on DZone?
Yeah, so I'm planning for at least not couple of, actually lot of things. So API monetization is one of the topics that I'm thinking about, and event driven architect. So that is few of the topics that I'm planning to actually publish. So maybe in August I will publish couple of more. So I'm not like I will be publishing 100 of them, but yes, like I'm trying to add blogs which will make sense and which doesn't really have any content or documentation currently. So if you see all my blogs, it has been mainly like people are not getting any documents or reference to like work on that. So that is what I'm concentrating on. So content which is not there available. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. I mean, so right now I'm just looking at DZone. So you've got 7 published articles that are almost at 80,000 views. So if you're watching this around the world today, go to Gaurav's profile on DZone, check out that article. If you find something you like, share it with your colleagues, your teammates. Let's get them up to 80,000 by the end of the day. So 7 articles, almost 80,000 page views. That's like quality. It's resonating. People are checking this out. You're doing great work on DZone, and it was a huge honor to have you on today.
Yeah, thank you, Blake. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So that was Gaurav. Just had up next, we've got our expert around DevOps and Agile, CI/CD. We've got Alireza is going to be joining us up here on stage. Alireza, how is it going today?
Hi again. Yeah, it's going well. Easy as always. Yeah, reading the articles. Since last event, I actually read so many articles, but to be honest, I couldn't pick up 5 articles like the previous times. But I came across 2 new article, which I think it's really interesting that how much they got attention from the audiences, and maybe I can share my screen, because then I think it will be easy for people to follow that. Just let me. Yeah, the first article is the article we had recently from Thomas Klein. The article is why Agile fails because of corporate culture. As you can see, it is already 42K views, which is quite a lot actually. If you look at the time of the publishing date of the article. This article is quite interesting. As we know, it's a quite controversial topic about talking about the Agile for the enterprise organizations or the large corporate. And Thomas has written a nice article, which is a really well-written article about these failures in the large corporate and the enterprise organization and why Agile is not working there. And I really suggest you read this article. This article is actually walking you through a lot of different aspects of this topic. And within this article, you get a lot of knowledge about the reasons that Thomas thinks that why Agile is not working in the large corporates. And mostly it's about the existing culture within these organizations are not changing when these organizations are moving towards Agile, which is one of the factor that doesn't allow people to try new things and change the way of working and so on. And also there are other factors which are explained in this topic. At DZone, we are ready to see if we can find the time to talk with Thomas, because I think this is a really nice article. Was written by Thomas. He's a agile coach, which has he has quite experience in this area. So I think it would be nice to have him to see what was his experiences and what was the motivation behind this article. And as we all know, that many organizations, many big enterprises are looking to the successful companies in the world, like the companies like Spotify, like the companies like Netflix. And because these companies has two sides. One side is the customer side. As a customer, we all know Netflix, we all know Spotify. Most of us are using them on a daily basis. And the other side, which is the technology side, that it's quite interesting how these companies are moving forward, how they are actually implementing the features, how they are adapting to the new way of working, how actually they invent a new way of working, because sometimes they are achieving goals in a short time, and we are really wondering how they did it. And that's why they create a new way of working, and they are quite inspiring for the rest of the companies within the world. But at the same time, it's quite kind of unknown areas that we don't know what they are doing and how they are working on a regular basis. So this is the reason that I'm going to the next article, which is the second article that I would like to suggest you to read. It's not an article, it's about a podcast has been done by Don from that's the last podcast Dan has done from
and we've got Nick from Linear B to join you for this.
Within this podcast, Dan talked to Katrin Kohler. And one of the interesting things is that Katrin Kohler is the director of the productivity engineering at Netflix. This is a quite new role, I think. I have never heard of that, but that's quite interesting. So I really suggest to listen to this podcast. It's 30 minutes, but it's quite interesting. It's quite inspiring. And let me just stop sharing, because then I can see.
Hey, Alireza.
So, just to tell you what I got from this podcast. It was, first of all, it was quite interesting for me, because every day we talk about DevOps, we talk about Agile, we talk about how you can fail faster, how you can take yourself out of your comfort zone. And we always talk about these companies like Netflix, Spotify. But I think this podcast was quite interesting when Katrin said about how they actually create a good environment for the developers, how they are avoiding rules instead of creating rules. They actually create more possibilities for people. They make they create more freedom for people to come up with their choices. And then when they choose something, they become an owner of that idea, and they have to be responsible for that, which is quite interesting, this environment. And I think that was quite interesting for me. I have never tried the other podcast from Dev Interrupted. Maybe if you tell us a little bit about this podcast you are actually doing recently, and then we can go for this particular podcast.
Sure. Our recent podcast was with two guys from Google, Hiram Wright and Titus Winters. And Hiram is actually the one who coined Hiram's Law, if you know what that is. You can look that up. There's a Google page. There's a Google, or you can Google it. And those guys talked about how to manage millions and millions of lines of code and all the different projects that take place inside of Google. And it was really good. It was so good, it ended up being an hour, so we cut it into two. So I think this week we'll be releasing the second one. We've got a number of really, really great guests coming up on the podcast. And I should have brought up, hang on, I'll tell you who some of them are, actually. If you'll give me just one moment.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time.
Yeah, we've got Brendan Burns of Microsoft. He's one of the guys who founded Kubernetes. We've got Maria Gutierrez, a VP of Engineering at Twitter. We've got Helen Beal from the Value Stream Management Consortium. She's a pretty interesting woman. And Rukmini Reddy, the VP of Engineering at Slack, is going to be on the podcast as well. So tune in. You can subscribe to Dev Interrupted just about any place you get podcasts. We broadcast the Spotify link. But anywhere you get podcasts, you should be able to find the Dev Interrupted podcast.
Okay, great. So I think that would be also interesting for the people to look at this podcast, because it's quite inspiring to see in the mother companies like Google, like Netflix, like Microsoft, how engineers are working. And one thing is interesting for me, I have a feeling that the perception of the DevOps and Agile in the big organizations, enterprise organization, sometimes is not something we expect, because when you look at how they implemented the DevOps and Agile, you look at the developers, you still see that the developers are quite limited on the area they can actually impact. And the reason for that is always the security. A lot of compliance is security. And when you talk to developers, they see that the tools they are using is not the tool they desire to use, and it's not the tool they prefer to use. And it's always something dictated from the up to down, But when you look at the Netflix or these companies like Netflix, you see that they make it quite the highest freedom as they can for the developers, but that doesn't lead to a lot of incidents, a lot of problems on the production. What we can learn from this? I mean, what is the problem with the enterprise organization? Because they always say, okay, if we give the freedom to developers, they make a mistake, the production can go down, these kind of things. But why we don't see these problems on Netflix in which the developers has the highest freedom? That's my question.
It's a good question. It's a really good question. Yeah. Yeah. And Catherine's a great guest. I recommend that podcast as well. Did we lose?
So, you have anything in your mind? Or that was a hard question.
Well, I don't know what to say exactly. I think a place like Netflix has so much redundancy and fail-safe solutions that they don't run into DevOps issues that we ever see. I can't believe that they don't have them, but I got to believe that they are good enough that it never. I shouldn't say never, but almost never gets out into the wild. I do know they do, the chaotic monkey thing where they just turn off services all the time, and people have the company and the organization and all their infrastructure has to be ready to handle that. So yeah, it's an interesting question why a company like, say, Netflix has a different DevOps way of doing business.
Yeah, the reason I asked this question, because the way I also learned myself DevOps, when I became a DevOps, was the fact that as a DevOps, we start to try things out of the boundaries we have already. Because within our boundaries, we are always limited. Everything is already defined before, so we cannot go further, But I think in the companies like Netflix, they give a lot of freedom to people to try things. And like the chaotic monkey you said, this is a quite risky project that you create something, then you try to actually make your services fail. And that's quite interesting, and also at the same time it's quite scary. I think most of the people are talking about that, but if you ask them, okay, are you actually interested to do the same thing in your organization? I don't think so. I think that's exactly the moment that you can find a big difference between these companies, and also the other companies are really trying to do something in a DevOps way. That was something I just wanted to say, because it was quite interesting for me.
Very good. Good stuff. Thanks.
So anyway, I think it was a really nice podcast. I really suggest
Thank you.
our audiences also to listen to this podcast. It's quite inspiring, I think, for not only the developers, I really suggest the technical managers, CTO, CEO, all C-level people also listen to this podcast. It's also useful for them to understand, by delegating so much power to other people in the company, they are not going to lose the control. Instead, they gain more, because within every company, we have a lot of developers. They are full of ideas. We just need to give them some permission, some freedom to be able to see what they are doing. So I think this podcast is also really helping in that way. So I really suggest to listen to that. That was my two choices from this event. So maybe we can back to Blake to see if he has any question.
Thank you very much, Alireza.
All right, thanks so much, Alireza, for that. And then we'll have a nice segue here over to Nick, and then we'll bring Alireza back during the Q&A.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Nick.
Sure.
All right, Nick, I've got you full screen here. So kind of a great, perfect segue. We keep having this with you and Alireza, these great segues. So.
Very good. Just wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on at Linear B and devinterrupted.com. Probably the big thing at Linear B is our Interact event on September 30th. It's going to be a hybrid event. It's online, totally free online. And we'll also be having some special guests at a smaller event in Tel Aviv. We got a number of high-profile speakers, VPs of engineering, and to major companies and things like that. We're not quite ready to announce anyone specific yet, but the lineup will be quite impressive. So the event's really designed for anybody who leads development organizations, ranging from dev leaders, to dev leads, to all the way up to VPs of engineering and CTOs. You can sign up at the events link at devinterrupted.com. And we're going to be doing these events quarterly throughout the world. So keep an eye out for that. Dev Interrupted is up and running. There's plenty of content going on there. 2 of the DZone articles that I've written this week are 9 things I learned about software development management when I was a software development manager, and a response to a blog post by Jessica Kerr, I hope it's Kerr, I think, called "Those Pesky Pull Requests Are Totally Worth It." Those are both on Dev Interrupted and on DZone, so appreciate that. We have our entire podcast library that Alireza was talking about on Dev Interrupted, and a growing collection of videos and YouTube videos and whatnot as well. So we'd be delighted if you'd go over there to devinterrupted.com, sign up for our newsletter, which comes out once a week. I talked about the latest podcast that we have. And finally, I just always want to put in a pitch for our Discord community. We have a great Discord community, very vibrant. We ask a question of the day. We call it the Daily Interruption every day. And we have some great discussions with some really interesting people, and we'd like more interesting people like you to come and join us. And you can get that at linearb.io/Discord, and you can join up there, and we'd love to have you. That's pretty much everything I've got for what's going on at Linear B. And Dev Interrupted, we'd love to have you stop by at the Discord, and we'd love to have you stop by and read some of our new content at devinterrupted.com. So thanks, Blake, for having me.
All right, Nick. So what are some of the articles that you're working on yourself? So you mentioned a lot of the other people, but what does Nick have going on? What can people expect from him?
I'm actually working on some product marketing articles that will highlight some of the cool features of Linear B itself. The one I'm working on right now is about coding time and how you can manage and deal with coding time, which is one of the 4 main components of cycle time. And I'll be continuing through the 4 components of cycle time, talking about how you can manage those, monitor those, improve those, keep those from getting out of hand, that kind of thing. But we've got some good thought pieces coming down on some leadership topics and some pieces from some of our podcast guests also. So we'll continue to put content on DZone because we get a lot of value out of that, and we appreciate the links and the hits and the reads and everything. Very grateful. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. And then I will have you back on here during the Q&A, but then I've got a few more things on my side, and then we'll bring you back for the Q&A.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to drop for that. But
well, you've been very gracious of your time today. You've done like 2 segments for us, so definitely appreciated. So
I apologize. But
we can only, Nick, we can only Dev interrupt you so much.
That's exactly. That's right.
All right, man, have a good one.
Thanks very much.
All right, so this is Blake again over at DZone. So very exciting stuff that we have going on. Our next DZone Live will be here in about 2 weeks. We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up with DZone Live. If you want to be a guest on our show, definitely reach out and let us know. Some of the things I want to just spike out today. On our featured homepage, we've got some great articles going on, but some of the content, if you're working in database, we've got some great articles from Cockroach Database or Cockroach Labs. So on Cockroach Labs, we've got some amazing content going on. So if you're a developer, database developer working with Cockroach Labs, we've got some great content going on. And so what we're featuring today, we've got an article from Daniel Holt where he talks about 3 ways to install Cockroach Database, Binary, Docker, or Kubernetes. So that's on the main DZone homepage today. So definitely go and check that out. Also, our featured DZone community member of the day is Artem Ervitz from Cockroach Labs. So they have 8 articles on DZone helping people out, over 35,000 page views. So if you're working with Cockroach Labs, you'll definitely want to check out the work of Artem. So congratulations to them as our featured DZone community member of the day. Every day, if you go over to LinkedIn, we're highlighting our featured DZone community member of the day. We've got a question of the day, and then we're also sharing authors on DZone that you should check out. So definitely be sure to go and check out that content for us. All right, I'm going to switch it over to just Q&A. So for anyone around, I bring everyone back up to the stage that is still here that wants to speak, and then we'll just do a couple of Q&A, and then we'll wrap up. So let's see. So we've got Alireza, and then I don't know if Vishnu and Gaurav have left, but we'll do a quick Q&A. So we've got 5 episodes in the book for DZone Live. It's kind of amazing, just a few weeks. What do you think so far, Alireza?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that we are in the 5th one. So I think that has been quite a work, actually, we have done so far. It's difficult. People are really busy in this industry, and to get some of them to this kind of event from a different time zone, I think that's not an easy job, as we see that everyone is really busy with a lot of stuff. So they are just jumping from one meeting to other. But it's still amazing that with this platform, we were able to set up a better connection between people and sort of having a better, I think, a structure to do these kind of events. And I'm really happy with that. And I'm really happy that how easy we can connect to each other. We can get some feedback. And I think I also start reading more articles and the content from others. And like what I mentioned, this podcast, it's really interesting. I don't know why I have to say that all the time, but this is really interesting. Usually the podcasts are boring for people, maybe even for myself, especially 30 minutes podcast. Maybe it's too much for people these days after a heavy working day. But I think this podcast is different. It's quite positive. It's quite energetic. When you hear, how much freedom people have there, how they can actually open the way for people, and then after that, people start doing more things. And I think that's quite interesting and inspiring. And I do really suggest if we can actually find a way to have these type of people in our events, because it's quite interesting, useful for companies to see how these big companies are capable of doing things by giving more freedom. And I think we need to emphasize on that, because that's a key point, I guess.
Yeah, I think for us, what's really exciting is we want to hear from the trenches, like actual real world stories. And a lot of the times, and we experience it, we'll go to events and people talk like 800,000 feet. So everybody, we're talking about bicycles. Bicycles are bicycles. And so when you talk like from technical people, it's like, yeah, we kind of know DevOps is DevOps, and you go to different topics, different technologies, and you talk so high level, there's really nothing actionable about that. And then you say, am I really going to invest my next 30 minutes or an hour where someone's talking like so high level? What are the real stories? What are people actually doing? What are the stuff in the trenches, the obstacles they're running into? What did they do? Right? Because you just hit an obstacle and say, I give up, right? You've got to find a way around that. Those are opportunities. Those are gaps you have to address. And what are people doing? And what does that tech stack look like? What are they doing operationally? And so it's always fascinating when we can literally hear from real world experience, real world stories, and not just kind of like high level coffee table stuff.
Yeah, the interesting thing is when you look at the successful companies, the people are getting success. It doesn't matter if it's a software company, if it's Tesla, if it's a SpaceX, if it's something we recently saw from the Richard Branson. They're making a lot of failures. How many times, for example, Tesla failed? How many times SpaceX failed on the Falcon? They exploded a lot of rockets. They maybe burn out the millions of dollars, but at the end of the day, they achieved what they wanted to achieve because they didn't afraid of doing that. They just continue doing that, and every time they learn something out of that. If you compare this to what we are doing in the software companies, we are not going to burn anything. The only thing we might actually fail, it just maybe the website goes down for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes. And sometimes you see even the managers don't dare to go some steps further just to try something new, And that's why I'm just saying sometimes you see the companies are just talking about the DevOps, Agile, but they don't understand, okay, all of these have the same thing in common, which is going out of your comfort zone. And you need to start doing things which you were not doing that before. So I think it's interesting when you hear the stories from Netflix, and if we are able to invite, the managers or engineers from these great companies, it's interesting because usually you see these people in the summit, in the DevOps summit, in the big events, and not necessarily everyone is able to participate in those events because they are not a lot. They are specific in a specific day. But these events we have here, we have more audiences. It's reachable for more of people. It's also accessible after the event. People, they can find it from the website, from the YouTube, from different platforms. It could be interesting if we find that opportunity to invite them to hear from their experiences and share it with people.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. So I've got a link in the chat to our survey form, so you can always let us know on what you'd like to see. You can also always let us know in the comments or chats when we do these. Hey, Blake, Alireza, this is the type of guest, this type of content topics we want to hear. So we definitely think that this is like, as we grow. So we're so into our early baby steps here. Only 5 episodes in. The overall series, we've already got over 20,000 video views just in the first few weeks, and we're still growing. So it's amazing, for us to do stuff. And I think you hit on something really key here, Alireza, is that for so much of the time at trade shows and articles, stuff like that, what do we hear about all the time? Like successes, right? Here's stuff that we did that was a success. What we don't hear a lot of times from is failures. And basically, so a lot of times, as you mentioned, like the failures are what led us to success. So sometimes we race past like, hey, this thing was a success, but what was that journey like to actually get you there to the success, right? What were those trials and tribulations there? And so hearing how like companies failed or overcame obstacles is just as important in sort of getting like that last chapter of the book. We're saying, look how we won.
Yeah, exactly. Just going back to what I said about Richard Branson, the Virgin Galactic, they started this journey from 2004. And after 17 years, they were able to do this test, which is, of course, everyone knows at the moment. But as you mentioned, they had a lot of failures within the last 17 years, but maybe not most of the people know about that. But they are always available on the news. You could see that, okay, Virgin Galactic failed on this. And but they didn't stop. They just wanted to do that. They just wanted to go to the space, wanted to try something new. And that's really interesting. I think we can really learn from these successful stories, especially from the failures, to see we shouldn't be afraid of trying things, especially in our side, which is quite easy because you're just trying different codes. So you're not going to hurt anyone or anything. You're just dealing with some of your code, which you can easily work with it.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting part too is, so like, to sort of use an analogy here, so in professional sports, if you're like basically go a season and you're undefeated, how much do you learn about yourself and your team versus a team that like had some setbacks, some key losses, right? And so a lot of times, like, you learn more from your failures or your obstacles than you do from just like a lot of success, right? So the losses help you to actually get stronger, to get better, there are opportunities for your teams to come together. There are opportunities for your operations to get even more sound, because these are ways that you can grow. And so I just think that, it's really amazing, kind of like going undefeated is great, but sometimes like having these failures are almost like necessary, because without them, are we even arriving at the same processes and operations and collaboration and integration that we wouldn't have otherwise?
Yeah, exactly. I think that, this is the kind of collaboration we need from a team to achieve something. And when we fail, that's exactly how Agile and DevOps comes to the place. When you fail, you're not going to blame anyone or anything. You're just trying to learn from it, because the next time you would do it differently, and probably it doesn't fail,
Yeah, great. And I think the other interesting part of just like when we look at like space exploration, the thing that always amazes me is not just like the rockets and the space flight, but all the technology that emerges out of it, right? So there's so many other areas where that knowledge sharing and the tech filters into other industries. So it's not just like the stuff that we're doing kind of leaving Earth and that type of stuff, but there's so much other knowledge sharing and technology that helps us in our daily lives that we almost like take for granted. So it's not just when you pave the way for your company, a lot of times like new industries and new technology forms as a result of it.
Yeah, because to me, I think because it's a kind of journey. They had a goal, but they didn't know how to get there, and they just come up to a lot of ideas, tried different things, and that's how the failure came. Because not every idea can actually achieve to that one. But this is exactly what you said. Within this journey, you get to know a lot of new technologies. You get to know a lot of new expertise, and you go along with this journey. And then at the end, I'm pretty sure on any idea you have, because that's what happened already. Whenever you see someone had an idea and they just put a lot of efforts to it in a group, they manage to get there. So and when you look at to every kind of technology, every kind of successful team, it looks like there is maybe one rule behind that. It's just a matter of just you have to have that passion and just bring it to the team. And I think then after that, yeah, maybe it takes time, but you can achieve that.
Yeah, great. And so you watched the Richard Branson space flight live on Sunday?
Yeah, that was amazing. It was also scary because it was not really tested a lot. So, but I think the founder was quite brave to put himself on this journey, to be honest, and that was really amazing to see how they did it differently than a SpaceX, because when a SpaceX take off, it consumes a lot of fuel to be able to go. But with this way that Virgin Galactic did, it's completely different because they take off like a plane, like a normal plane, and they go to the highest amount they can go, like 50,000 miles, and then after that they just drop the Virgin Galactic spaceship. I don't know if you call it we call it a spaceship or something else, but yeah. And that was amazing, the different way of doing that. Even in the United States, there are different companies already that are doing this. For example, SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, and others. So that's amazing how people are thinking, okay, let's do something different. And that's really interesting. Instead of looking to the neighbor and say, okay, maybe we can do the same, they started to think to do something different. And this is the beginning to make these kind of journeys more accessible for other people. At the moment, it's quite expensive, of course, but we know that that was the same for the airplane in the past. In the past, the taking a flight was not possible for everyone. Nowadays, it's out of question when we talk about it. But I think they are making it the same for the going to the space for people. That's really amazing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just the overall, just for me, the other side of that too is just not only with this kind of the space programs, but at companies where it's either an individual or a team of people that basically start to say, like, they're up against some obstacles and things like that. It could be budget, it could be their tech stack, technical debt, any number of things, but where they literally say, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a better way to do this. And so that sort of spirit of innovation, that sort of spirit of kind of like forming tiger teams, whatever you want to call it, of just saying, like, hey, we're not looking at this from a budget, or we're not saying, like, hey, this is an obstacle, we're never going to get over it. They're saying, hey, there's got to be a better way to do it. And so across so many things in the business world, when people get on that roll and they basically say, hey, we're going to break through these walls, we're going to figure out a better way to do that or do this, that's where you start to see these new companies form, these new like product lines, this new type of technology, these new types of industries emerge because somebody somewhere just one day said, the heck with this, I'm finding a better way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. For me also, I think for many, maybe it looked a little bit commercial, this event, but for me, really, it wasn't, because I was just looking at this is a kind of successful story, and because of the fact that I was following the news and I was reading how many times they fail, it was quite interesting for me, as you mentioned, that how they really came up to something new in any aspect, in any part of the project, they came up to something new for the design. And it was quite interesting to see something completely new and it's still working. And yeah, that was really inspiring for me, and I really learned a lot actually from this. That it's a never ending, and that's why I think the hard working, it's a kind of key point I think for our side. We should keep hard working in order to achieve our goals. That's how you can put yourself out of your comfort zone. Sometimes when I'm asked about, okay, how you became a DevOps engineer, I said, okay, I did things that I was not doing before. For example, before I was just working like a normal employee. Then I started spending more hours because that's how you can grow. It's something you need to do. And yeah, that's something we just wanted to mention that was interesting to see all of these things last week. I mean, this podcast, this Virgin Galactic, it's interesting. I mean, after problems we had from the COVID, yeah, we're getting back.
Nice. So essentially what you're telling me is that when you were 4 years old, you didn't say, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be a DevOps engineer.
No, I didn't know that. Actually, I didn't know that. And yeah, for me, it has been a journey, I could tell you. 6 years ago, I didn't know that I'm going to become a DevOps. So I just, I just put myself in this journey, I could tell you. I never planned for any role or something. What I wanted to do, I was really curious to see how we can deliver something better for the customer, because I'm really customer centric person, rather than being centric about the code I'm writing. I'm more actually dedicated to what customer thinks and how we can get close to the customer. That's why the story from the Netflix is quite interesting for me, because they are quite customer centric. They really care about the customer, because that's how their business goes on. It's quite a competitive market. So yeah, within a DevOps, I found a way that we can hear the customer voice easier, better, and we can reflect that to the teams. And then we don't have that hassle inside the companies that there are different departments. As a DevOps engineer, I can walk into any department. I can talk to different people without any problem. I remember in the past when I was a developer, if I wanted to talk to someone which is a little bit higher than one manager, I should first talk to my direct manager, and after that go to the next person. This hierarchy wouldn't allow us to have a good communication. And sometimes also it was a matter of hiding things, because the higher manager wouldn't know so much because there is someone in between. But I mean, within this new structure, that we are trying to have a better communication, and this is just for good. It's just to deliver something better, to deliver more values for the customer. And we talked about all the buzzword, and I think we should continue talking about the shift left and these kind of things, because I do believe that still many companies are seeing these things staying on the surface. They see the DevOps, they see the Agile, they really want to implement, but they are staying just on the ritual part. They do the rituals, they do the meetings, but they are not getting a result out of that because the mindset is still not there. So I mean, what is missing for people when they look at the Spotify and they look at the Netflix, that kind of commitment are stayed in this kind of companies. People get together, they say, we want to make this happen at the end of this week, no matter what happens. And you might spend 10 hours per day. That's not maybe desirable for many people, but that's how a startup works. And then after the 10 days when they achieve something, yeah, they are really happy for that, and they forget the old tiredness, the days, nights, and but it doesn't mean that you have to work 10 hours per day. But sometimes maybe there is no other way to achieve something, because those amazing things happens when you're really dedicated to the thing you want to do. You're focused and you're committed, and I think these things are not that visible for most of the people. They just think that, okay, they did DevOps, we do the DevOps, and we might achieve. I'm not saying they don't, but I mean, sometimes you need that kind of commitment, that kind of collaboration to get things done.
Great. And then for just, we talked a little bit about your journey into DevOps. So for the people today that whether they're like in grade school or entering college, or maybe they're about to enter the workforce, and they're looking to say, hey, I want to be a DevOps engineer. So for the people at the very first part or about to start, what are some of the tips or advice you would give like a up and coming DevOps engineer?
Well, my first advice to the junior, to students, is to not to get bothered with the technologies we are using today, because when they are graduated, we are not using the technologies we are talking today. So they don't. It's better for them to don't waste time on the technologies only. I'm just saying they really need to dedicate their time to the fundamental topics. For example, about the software engineering, about the design process. They need to get the actually foundation of the knowledge, rather than just spending time on actual tools or technology, because now we are bombarded with many tools and technologies. But the point is, we can easily switch from one technology to other or one tools to other. So that's not the point. I think the most of the engineers are able to learn fast. But the point is, as a software engineer, you need to have a mindset to understand the requirements from the customer. What is the software development life cycle? You know, you need to have a good understanding from this life cycle, where to start, where to finish. And when we talk about the OS, about the Windows, about the Linux, these OS are really, really complicated nowadays. So we need to understand how these OS are working behind the scene, how these OS are actually combined from different blocks. And we, as a software engineer, how we are going to add something new to this OS, you know? So this kind of complexity needs a lot of knowledge. You need to spend time to get on. But unfortunately, if you're just spending time on the technologies like Kubernetes, it looks really fancy. Easily you can create some cluster, some containers, and you think that's it. But the point is, this is just a surface. When there is an issue on any container, on any part of the Kubernetes, then you need that kind of foundation knowledge to understand how Windows is working and how Linux is working. For example, you see the error, but that error, behind that error, there are a lot of things. You need to know to be able to understand how this error connected to something else in the OS. That's why I think what is really needed, the foundation knowledge, it's a quite important part. Apart from that, the way of working, we are talking like Agile, DevOps, site reliability engineering. It's good to actually read a lot about them. For example, for DevOps, we have a DevOps Foundation. There are a lot of materials over there. For the SRE, we have a site reliability engineering book from Google, which is quite interesting book that was written by Google engineers, and they said how they came up to this way of working. And I think it's good, rather than just reading something on the Google, just read books, because maybe it's frustrating. It's quite a lot of pages, but you know, if you don't read that book, you don't have a good understanding about the SRE. And that's why when you're sitting in an interview and they ask you some questions to understand if you're a site reliability engineer, maybe you cannot give them the concrete answer. How you argue as a site reliability engineer, you know, to become such an engineer, you need to have a knowledge, and to get that knowledge, you need to spend time. So I think the focus, it's the most important part. Unfortunately, we cannot learn everything at the same time. So that's why we really need to specify enough time to read some materials in a specific period, which means on that period we cannot do other things. So if we start doing several things at the same time, we cannot do other things. You know, it's a matter of choices. So I know that most of the engineers have a lot of unfinished readings, a lot of unfinished courses, because you know, we start something today, the next day we get another email, we start something else. It's very difficult to keep focused. So my second advice is to try to keep focus on something. Maybe in 2 months, decide to do something. Maybe in 2 weeks, 2 months, and try to focus on that, because it's really important to be good at something rather than a leader from a lot of things. You know. And to become a DevOps engineer, you need to know a lot of topics. You need to know about the software engineering, about the software development. You need to know about the hardware, because you are going to become responsible for the infrastructure, for the supporting, for the troubleshooting. That's a lot, and some of them you can actually read from the articles, from the books, but many things are happening during the actual job. So you need to see how you can find, for example, the internship, or maybe the voluntary experiences, or maybe ask from your friends to share some of the experiences with you, or participating in the meetups. The things we are doing here also is part of that, because time to time, I think the authors on DZone are trying to actually reveal some of the secrets they have in their job, which is not a secret. It's just a matter of the daily job we are doing. For us, it's quite normal, but for the junior, it's an unknown area. So I mean, it's a combination of different activities we need to do, and but as I said before, we need just to be really structured to be able to get something out of that. And another thing is to networking, but not the networking like just to add people on LinkedIn, just to have the big network. Yeah, you can have a thousand connection on the LinkedIn, but you're still the same person as you were before. What you need for the networking is to really make a real connection with people. Try to connect to the engineers. There are a lot of passionate engineers. They are open to share their experiences. You can connect to engineers, ask what they are doing, and try to see how you can learn something from them to apply to your first job, to your internship, even in your university. If you have a final thesis, you want to work on something, you don't know where to start, what to do, you can always connect to the engineers, to the expert people in the market, because they are really experienced in their job and they can help you on that.
Wow,
sorry, that's a lot.
No, I mean that's a gold mine, but I think for anybody just getting started, that's a really good foundational piece that covers a lot of ground, because we can't really just say, hey, you want to be a DevOps engineer, let's talk about it in a 30-second soundbite, because we're probably not going to help you out. So just spending several minutes there, I think for anyone that's about to start that journey or looking at it, that's a really great several minutes just to kind of some really good insight for them to hit up on replay. So just even after we're done, we'll put that into its own clip. And I think that's going to be very impactful for anyone there, because you're not just giving them some sound bites, which sound good. You're giving them some actionable stuff where they can really write down a homework assignment to things that they can put almost like a checklist of things to keep in mind and things that they want to be sure of. And so then just kind of last question. So we're going to be breaking some DZone Live records on our time today. We're at the 1 hour, 23 minute mark. But one last question that I wanted to throw to you before we wrap up here is that one of the things for a lot of developers, software professionals, they have a lot of this knowledge and insight, but they're like, I don't know how to share this information. So what do you think for someone that has whether they're working at Netflix or wherever they are, that has all this information and knowledge in their heads, what do you think is that kind of the secret sauce for them to get that light switch to say, hey, you know what, I can get onto DZone to write an article, or maybe come onto DZone Live to talk about it, just for the, because it's not always obvious. The people that are doing it, there has to be that moment they're like, hey, you know what, I can actually start blogging. I can actually start to get onto webinars or to live streams and talk about my experience. But what does it generally take to get over that? They may say, hey, I'm not a writer, or I'm not media trained, I'm not going to do that. But what do you think it sort of takes to sort of have that light switch go off, and then B, to say, hey, you know what, I can do this?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the sad story is, the sad thing is, at the moment I'm working with a lot of engineers with different companies, and I could tell you how many people I could tell you they are really good, they have a lot of experiences, and we are really missing them in the communities. And as you mentioned, one of the most common, I think, problem with why they are not in the communities, just because I think they don't think that they are good enough to show themselves or write something, because they think to become a writer you need to have some different qualities or different skills, which is not wrong, by the way, because when you write you have to also follow some guidelines for you have to write something which is good in the grammatical, in the content-wise, in different aspects. But I mean, no one was writer from the first day. You have to start from something, and then you become that writer. And I think the good thing at DZone is that we are not alone. You know, I remember when I started my journey, that in my first text, of course, I just wrote something, and I got a lot of edits from the editor. But that was really amazing, because when I got that, I said, "Oh, that's nice," because there is an editor there. I'm not alone. He or she can help me. And after that, from every edit, I actually, what I did, you know, whenever I actually write something and I got some edit, I put it on the Microsoft Word and I see what has been changed. And I learned from that pattern, okay, this is a mistake I am doing every time. Let's not to do that. So this is a journey. I would say the first thing people need to do is to see that the knowledge they have is quite valuable. We need to learn from their knowledge. We are missing them here. So I think it's valuable if we have them in communities, especially at DZone, I think, which is a kind of one of the biggest community for IT. We have a good structure in place. We have different categories. So we have a space for everyone. If you're from the cloud perspective, if you're from the artificial, if you're a Java developer, if you're a tester, if you're an agile coach, you know, if you're working on the personal development, if you're interested about creating the reference card, if you're interested to work on the trend reports, we have a lot of opportunities at DZone. And there are a lot of nice people are ready to work with the new writers, with junior writers, I would say. And at the other hand, the people like us that we are also writing at DZone, we are able to available here to help them. So as I said on the previous events, that one of the easiest things is they can reach out to us. If they have some ideas, they can easily reach out to us. They can share their ideas. We can help them. Maybe we can write something together in the first place. Maybe we can give them some feedback and tell them how good their article is or what they can do to make it better, to be able to share it on this. And I think that the first thing they need just to don't dare just to share your ideas and take a first step. At DZone, we are here to help you. So don't worry about that. Just share your ideas. And I think, I think this is how we can grow together.
Great. Thanks so much for that. So we'll start to wrap up here today. So we got Alireza on, DZone contributor, core member, had the links to your profile in our chat today. Some of the other, and then our next DZone Live is going to be on Thursday, 2 weeks from now, on Thursday, July 29th. It's going to be a low-code, no-code theme. So we've got some exciting guests, just like we're talking about with Netflix and the other ones. We've got some exciting guests coming in from the trenches, real-world stories, low-code, no-code. That's going to be on DZone Live, episode 6 on Thursday, July 29th. A little bit of breaking news today on the DZone. We just started a thing called the DZone shout-out thread that we're doing every Friday. And so I'm going to post the latest one up a day early, so you'll be able to find it off the DZone homepage. But our DZone shout-out thread is essentially shout out a DZone writer you recommend. And so when the article is live, to participate in the comments, go to the comments for it, put your name, your location, what you write about on DZone, and then importantly, on the person you're going to be shouting out, this is going to be a fellow DZone writer that you recommend or inspires you, right? So someone else on DZone that you're like, hey, I really like the work of Alireza or Justin Albano or Javi on Alexa. Write that DZone writer that you're going to recommend or inspires you, put a link to their DZone profile and a little bit of nuggets, insight on what it is about their articles that you like them. So again, our DZone Shout Out Friday thread will be on the DZone homepage here pretty soon. So don't miss that. And then that's it on my side of the house for everything that we have going on. So we're right just hit the 1.5 hour mark. This is episode number 5. We are still a little baby learning how to walk, doing the live streaming, but just huge thanks to our global audience, everybody that's watching this after the fact. Thanks so much to our guest over at Opsera, Gaurav, Nick, and Alireza. We covered so much ground today. You can watch this on repeat. We're going to have individual clips shared across our social channels, also embedded back into the DZone article for this. We're going to keep growing, keep doing amazing things. So that's it, everything on my side. And then Alireza, I will turn it over to you as our always special guest. Do so much to make the vibrant, to give the vibrant aspects to our DZone community. So I will let you close us out today with DZone Live episode 5.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was amazing. And yeah, I think we are getting there. Hopefully one day we do a one-day event. For now, 1.5 hours, it's fine. And yeah, one thing, if you're writing at DZone and you think we can actually talk about your article in these events, you can reach out to me. Then yeah, we can discuss about your article and we might do an interview. So just feel free to reach out to me about your article. If you have any idea, you want to start writing article, you don't know where to start, you can reach out to any of the DZone core members like me, like Justin Albano, like Zoe, like Thomas Jansen. So we are here to help you. And yeah, that's it. I wish you a nice evening or nice day in a different time zone, and hope to see you soon in the next event.